Welcome back to another baseball focused video. Today, jumping back into some MLB Draft. Just released my Mock Draft 3.0, my third mock draft of the season. Got it a little late, about 10 days later than I wanted to. I've been trying to do one a month on the 11th of the month because the draft will be July 11th. So I've got two more coming before the real thing. Try to have done June 11th. That would be the goal. Probably won't happen because I'm planning on it to be 3 rounds. This one was, the first two were every team's first pick, so it only came out to 30 picks. This one was 40 total picks, every pick of the first round, supplemental round, all the competitive balance picks. So this is the third one of the cycle. The board is really taking shape because you got a lot of high school seasons have come to an end or are close to coming to an end. And then you've got conference tournaments going on in college baseball right now, regionals next weekend. So season's winding down, so the board is really taking shape. Still a lot of question marks, I would say. Outside of the top 10, I think you've got a very wide range of players that can fall into the first round. So there's still a lot of question marks on the board and within the first round, but we have a better picture of what it may look like than we did a month ago. So we're going to jump into it, talk through these picks, and maybe some shuffling on my draft board. My draft board's up to 85 players as of right now, so I encourage you to go check that out. And then also go check out the piece. I'll have that linked in the bottom of this video, so you can go read the description on every pick. This is definitely my favorite draft piece I've done this year. Just really went hard on some of these descriptions for each pick. Really try not to just willy-nilly, pair players with teams. Although it was hard with some of these teams drafting later in the first round are tough to project. But did my best to pair players with the right teams and the right ranges. Definitely encourage you to go read the article. Also, bear with me because I've got SEC semifinal on in the background right here, Arkansas versus Auburn. So bear with me if my eyes are wandering throughout this video. Georgia just completed a 6-run comeback over Florida in their semifinal. So kind of gives you an idea of when I'm recording this Saturday afternoon. A lot of conference championships tomorrow. So winner of this game will go on to play Georgia in the SEC final. So that's another thing to look out for. I'm sure I'll do a piece or maybe a few on how the conference tournaments went and what to look for in the regional rounds. And then I'm also planning on doing a video after Selection Monday when the committee decides who is in the tournament. I'm planning on hopping on here and doing a video kind of breaking that down. But for now, we're here to talk about the draft. So let's jump into it. Got the lone White Sox hat in my collection. Decided I'd rock it in honor of my first MLB Mock Draft video. Before I jump in real quick, I do want to address something. This is something that we see every year when the draft starts rolling around. Someone releases a mock draft, and whether it be video, social media, Twitter, whatever, and then in the comments you have half the comments saying, why would my team draft a shortstop when we drafted a shortstop last year? Okay? Why is my team drafting a shortstop when we need pitching? Our starting rotation at the big league level is weak. We need pitching. Why are we drafting a shortstop? Why are we drafting a shortstop when we need outfield depth? Before you comment that under this video, if you choose to, my advice to you is to take your hand off the keyboard and don't complain that I have your team taking a shortstop, okay? I'm not even going to go into an explanation why that is the case, okay? I just want you to put on your critical thinking cap and just watch the video, okay? All jokes aside, I am planning on doing something, whether it be a video or an article, about why shortstops are the most valuable, whether college or high school, why they're the most valuable demographic to select from. So that might answer your question just a little bit based on that. So anyway, I'm sorry if I have your team drafting a shortstop and they drafted a shortstop last year. Now that we got that out of the way, we'll jump into the first pick. White Sox. Doesn't come as much as a surprise. I still have them taking Rock Chalowski. I've had them taking Chalowski in my first two mocks. And I've been on the record stating that I think the gap is a lot closer than the industry has made it out to be. I still think that's the case. I still think that I still wouldn't be I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked if they took Grady Emerson here. Emerson, I was actually kind of lower on Emerson without realizing it earlier in the cycle. I had him ranked 4th on my draft board behind Jackson Floor and Von Lackey. And then he just put up just an incredible season in the Texas high school ranks. I'm pretty sure if you went back within like the past 10 drafts or so, I think Grady Emerson goes first overall in at least half of them. So he's a first overall pick talent. So I just wouldn't be shocked if the White Sox pivoted to him, and they probably would be able to offer him an underslot deal less than what they would probably offer Cholowski, just because Cholowski is the favorite at this point. And Emerson probably has a higher ceiling as well, just the fact that he's a high schooler that's already very polished. But regardless of the fact, Cholowski just hasn't done anything for him to be knocked off that spot. And I've also seen things about, the Giants at 4. Can he fall to the Giants at 4 because they traded Patrick Bailey to get an extra pick, which in turn gave them extra bonus pool money? That's just it's just not realistic. If the White Sox want Rock Cholowski at number 1 overall, they're going to draft him number 1 overall. They're going to offer him a bonus, and if Cholowski doesn't want the bonus, if it's not enough for him, he's just going to go back to school. He's going to be a senior at UCLA, and he's probably not going to be able to get the same type of bonus next year. So he would just be throwing money away by rejecting the offer. And then for whatever reason, if the White Sox don't pick Cholowski, then you have the Rays behind them who have an even higher bonus pool and would be able to offer him more money. And if the Rays want to pick him, they're going to pick him. I think I would say there's a 0.001% chance that Rock Cholowski and his camp come out and say, hey, this is my price tag. And the 3 teams drafting ahead of the Giants are like, all right, we're going to pass because we know we're not going to be able to sign you. And then, but that's the other thing too, is that the Giants have a smaller bonus pool than the White Sox and the Rays. I think they might have a higher bonus pool than the Twins. But regardless of the fact that if they are going to sign Cholowski at a higher dollar amount than that the White Sox and Rays are willing to do so, that is a far bigger percentage of the Giants' bonus pool for them to put all of their eggs in one basket on one player, which I love Buster Posey, but if he did that, I would say fire him tomorrow. To spend that much of your bonus pool on one player, regardless of the talent, it would just be ridiculous. So Cholowski's not falling to 4. He's probably not falling to 2. He's not falling to 3. And even if he does fall that far, it's not because the Giants got additional bonus pool money when trading Patrick Bailey for an extra pick. So we just need to get that out of our minds right now. If the White Sox want him at number 1, they're going to take him at number 1. And it's not like free agency. If the White Sox take Cholowski and he rejects the White Sox offer, it's not like he's just going to say, oh, I like the Giants offer better, I'm going to go to the Giants. It doesn't work like that. The bonus pool does help the players to get a little more leverage than they had previously, but the teams still have the leverage, especially for these college guys. So still have Cholowski at number 1. Grady Emerson, still have him at number 2. I have also had him at the Rays for the first 2 mock drafts, so that hasn't changed. And then the Twins, Von Lackey. In my first mock, I had Justin LeBron there. I would have released that mid-March, which I think that was around the time conference play started, so the industry was still a little bullish on, LeBron improving in conference play, and he just didn't. So he's kind of dropped. He's definitely dropped from top 5 consideration for me. I think he still could be a top 10 pick. Kind of depends on how he performs in the postseason. And he'll certainly have runway to do that because Alabama's probably going to host a regional and will probably be favorites to get into a super regional. So he's going to have some runway to improve his stock late into the cycle. But I got Von Lackey here at 3. I had him for number 2. So for my second mock draft. So my first 3 picks are the same from the previous draft. Actually, my first 4. I'm about to get to Jackson, Florida, the Giants, and the Twins also. They do like their college bats. It was Merrick Houston last year, and then 2024 it was Kalen Culpepper. So they like their up the middle college bats. Lackey is one of the best we've seen in a while. The defense just continues to. It's jaw-dropping ability behind the plate for me. Plenty of times I'm watching him and I'm just kind of dumbfounded by the things he can do behind the plate. And then obviously the offense just continues to tick up. I would say middle of conference play, he kind of cooled off a bit. And I was wondering if there was any chance he might slip, but he has heated back up. He hit 2 home runs yesterday in Georgia Tech's ACC. I think it was the quarterfinals against. Who did they play yesterday? Virginia. He had 2 home runs against Virginia, and then added another one today against Miami in the ACC semifinal. So he just continues to look the part of a top 5 pick. I don't see him slipping. And then the Giants. This one is funny because, like I said, I did spend a lot of time, kind of grinding through these picks, and. Between the time that I mocked Flora here a couple days ago and now, I think Jacob Lombard has now become the favorite for this pick. I decided to stick with my guns here with Flora just because I am like the really high guy on Flora here. But I do know that the Giants and Jacob Lombard are like gaining some steam for sure, and I think there is like a legit link there between the two. I do also think about the fact that they do have the extra bonus pool money, and what teams typically do is they underslot with their first pick, and then they kind of go all in on some of these preps later. And I think the Giants' next pick is 29th overall, which there's going to be a lot of high upside preps in that range. So I'm kind of just going off the fact that that's typically the strategy of a team drafting high with an extra pick in the back of that first round. And I think Flora would be the candidate to do that. And Flora just continues, just like Lackey, just continues to look the part, just continues to post. He just threw 2 nights ago, I think it was, against, was it Cal State Fullerton? It was in the Big West tournament. I think he went 7 shutout innings. And yeah, I think he's just a safe bet here at 4. And because of that, I do have the Pirates taking Jacob Lombard 5th overall. First mock draft, I had him going Jackson, Flora. Second one, I had Eric Booth Jr. I do prefer E.J. Booth over Jacob Lombard, but I have Jacob Lombard over here for 2 reasons. One, I think that the industry has just become a little bit higher on Lombard. The other thing, too, is you look at the last 2 drafts, the Pirates are not afraid to take on high school risk. Okay, so last year was Seth Hernandez, who, for me, Seth Hernandez wasn't super risky, just because he was like super polished for his age, in high school, and the prep right-handed pitchers are risky naturally. So regardless of how good the talent is, you're taking on risk by selecting a prep right-hander in the first round within the first 10 picks. But they went ahead and took Seth Hernandez. Have gotten excellent returns early on. I think he's already in high A. He was older for the class at the time, but I don't think he's turned 20 yet. And then obviously the year prior, you had Connor Griffin falling to 9th to them. Obviously, Connor Griffin is lighting the world, or he was lighting the world on fire in the minor leagues. Number 1 overall prospect, and the game is starting to come around at the big league level, and he just turned 20. So Lombard is kind of cut from the same cloth as Griffin. There's, I wouldn't say legitimate hit tool concerns, but he did, from what I believe, he did struggle with velocity on the summer circuit last year, struggled with, velocity up in zone, which you're going to get exposed if that's the issue there in pro ball. But just a premier athlete, just like Connor Griffin was. He's going to stick at shortstop. He's one of the best defensive shortstops in the class, and there's a lot of power upside as well, just like Griffin had. So I would imagine the Pirates are looking at Lombard feeling a lot more confident than other teams in this range would, right? And you do look at the Pirates taking Connor Griffin 9th overall at the time. Like, for instance, like you had Bryce Rayner there available with that pick, which at the time, Griffin had a lot more upside. He did have the swing concerns and the hit tool concerns, and like was pretty consensus ranked over Bryce Rayner. But Bryce Rayner was like a far more polished bat, and also was probably going to stick at shortstop. So you could have gone either way. I think Bryce Rayner would have been the safer bet at the time. In hindsight, obviously, the Pirates made the right choice. But it just shows that they're willing to take on the risk to cash in on the upside. And Jacob Lombard, I mean, there's not many players in this class with more upside than him. And if they feel like they can make the same changes to him that they made to Griffin, you're talking about another potential number one overall prospect in their system in Lombard. Because the power upside it's plus power potential, it's plus defense, and yeah, if he's hitting enough, this is potentially the best prep to come from this class. So with Jacob Lombard coming in at 5 to the Pirates, I do have Eric Booth going to the Royals at 6th overall. I had Jacob Lombard to the Royals in my first 2 mock drafts, so this is the first new name for the Royals here at 6. Like I said, I do prefer Booth over Lombard. He has just continued to vault up boards all spring. It's elite athleticism. He might be the fastest runner in this class. He plays excellent center field defense, and it's probably going to get better once he gets into a pro organization. The arm is weak, but I'm not really concerned about the arms if you're tracking down fly balls in center field. And then I know it's like a split camp on the swing. For me, it's like he's already showing plus bat to ball skills and he's tapping into power. So I mean, if you're already flashing like an above average bat despite the swing, I don't really feel like there's a need to really tweak the swing at the next level because he's already getting results from it. Now obviously there's a big discrepancy between high school pitching and pro pitching, but at the same time, it's like if you're providing with these secondary tools, which are elite, some of the best secondary tools in the class, and you're doing enough to hit. I mean, for me, I don't really love the swing just because it's a funky, flat approach, and I'm very concerned on whether he's going to get to his game power at the next level. But if you're hitting the way you are now, I think it's going to be an average bat at the next level. And if it's an average bat on top of the elite secondary tools, that's an easy top 10 pick for me. And the Royals, they like their tools he preps. I mean, if you look last year, it was Sean Gamble and then Josh Hammond, I believe. I don't think it was back to back, but they were pretty close in the back half of the first round there. And Gamble, it was, athleticism, hit tool. Josh Hammond, it was, big power potential and excellent defense at third base. So both of them had a lot of upside because of the loud tools. The Royals like their loud tools. I think Booth is the pick here. If Lombard is 4th overall to the Giants, I think Booth is the pick here for the Pirates. And then the board kind of opens up from there. I think after these 5 guys, you can even take Jackson Flora out of this group. I think Chalowski, Emerson, Lackey, and then I'd probably leave Flora out of this. Lombard and Booth Jr. Those 5 right there, I think are the only slam dunk top 10 picks. Flora, for me, if I was a team drafting within the top 10 picks, Flora's not getting out of the top 10. Just because I really love Flora. But outside of those 5, it really starts to open up. So I think with the way this particular mock draft is shaking out, I think the Royals would be really glad to get Eric Booth Jr. here, because then I think if they don't, I think they would have a tougher decision to make just because the board just really opens up. So at 7, I have Drew Burress, Georgia Tech outfielder. I had him going to them in the first mock draft, and then the second I had Justin LeBron slipping from 3rd overall to the Twins down to 7th overall to the Orioles. For me with Burress, I've been kind of lower on the bat, and I kind of explained this in my draft board video, is the fact that his best season was his freshman year. So we know that crazy season is somewhere in the profile. He just hasn't repeated it. And then also just, the fact that he's 5'9", it's like how much power is he going to get into? But I still think it's a high floor bat. He's going to hit. There's feel for getting the ball in the air to the pull side. So I don't think it's going to be plus power. I think it's probably going to be average power. But then you add on the above average to maybe plus hit tool. You add on the center field defense, which I've been on the record stating I absolutely love his defense in center field. It's a strong arm. He's super rangy out there. I think he's one of the better center fielder defenders in the class. So, and the reason, and despite the fact that I am a little bit lower on his bat than the rest of the industry, we came into this cycle looking at all of these college bats and how good they were in the depth of this class. And then everyone got into conference play and everyone just laid a goose egg in conference play. I mean, so you had all of these college bats slipping, and then only a few kind of held up in conference play, and Drew Burress is one of them. And if the last couple of drafts tell us anything, it's that the Orioles, they like their college bats, especially if they play a premier, like an up the middle premier position. And Drew Burress does that in center field. He's going to stick at center field at the next level, in my opinion. If not, I think he's going to be an excellent right fielder. And like I said, he's going to hit. It's just like how much is he going to hit? So it's hard to pass on the tools of Burress in the top 10. I think, where did I have him going in the second mock draft? I had him at 13th overall to the Cardinals, which I think right now would be the floor for Burress, just because he is performing deep into the season. So I like for him to fall to the Orioles, or not fall to the Orioles. I think this is just like the right spot, right range for him. I don't see him going within top 5, but I also don't see him falling to the back half of the first round. So I like this spot for him. Athletics at 8, I have going Chris Akopian. I know that there's, for me with the A's, I know that they really love like their polished hit tools. If you look at 2023 is Jacob Wilson, 2024 is Nick Kurtz. Then they pivoted to a pitcher with Jamie Arnold, 11th overall last year. I think that was more a matter of Jamie Arnold kind of falling into their laps. I can't remember how many mock drafts I did last year, but I think there were 2 of them where I had Jamie Arnold going 1st overall, and then he falls to 11th to the A's. So that might have been more of a matter of, well, this pitcher, kind of fell into our laps. Why not take him here, regardless of the fact that there might be a college bat in there that we like better. And it also just kind of goes to show that they just like polished college players anyway. I think their second pick was Devin Taylor out of Indiana last year, and I was super high on Devin Taylor. I think there was actually one mock draft where I mocked Devin Taylor to the A's in the first round as the 11th overall pick, just because it's such a good bat. It's definitely polished college bat here, and Chris Akopian might be the best pure bat in college baseball. I mean, it's excellent bat-to-ball skills, it's power, and he's doing it in his first season in the SEC after being at Maryland for his first 2 years in the Big Ten. So I think this, for me, it's kind of a no-brainer if Akopian is available here. At 9th overall, I have the Braves going with Cade Townsend, right-handed pitcher out of Ole Miss. Townsend just kind of has burst onto the scene this year. Wasn't really on my radar early in the cycle just because he did come in with like a lot of command issues. And then he's kind of just answered those questions this year and has been one of the top performers in the SEC. And the Braves love to take pitchers in the first round. Last year was Tate Southstein, high school shortstop. So maybe there is a shift in their strategy. But I think history shows us, especially in the Alex Anthopoulos era, is that they like pitchers in the first round. First 2 mock drafts, I had them taking Carson Boleman. I just know that the Braves are kind of licking their lips at this class with all the, with the prep arms. They have shown a tendency to not be as scared of taking prep arms. And so I kind of was thinking about the fact that, okay, well, they're probably going to take a prep arm first in the first round. But I would say that I think that the gap between, for me, the top 3 high school pitchers in this class are Carson Boleman, Gio Rojas, and Logan Schmidt. And then Brody Bumilla is kind of right behind there, right there. And then you got Coleman Borthwick. I think the gap between the top pitchers, the top prep pitchers in this class, and then the gap between them and the guys that are going to go 2nd, 3rd round, I don't think the gap is that wide. So, and the Braves do have another first round pick. So I would like, in my opinion, underslot a college arm here and then cash in on a prep arm. I mean, there's a scenario where Bowman or Rojas are available with their next pick, which is, I'm checking right now, 26th overall. So I've seen boards where Bowman and Rojas are ranked outside the top 20. So you could float one of them down to your pick on a hefty overslot deal if you really like them that much. So I think if they passed on a Bowman or a Rojas or maybe a Logan Schmidt, maybe a Brody Bumilla I think this could still be a landing spot for him. He could be a top 10 pick. I think even if those guys are off the board by your 26th pick, I think you're still happy with whoever you're getting at that pick if you are going with a prep arm. So that's why I like for them to go to a college arm here. Cade Townsend is kind of between Townsend and Logan Redmond at this point. I just feel a little safer about Townsend at this point in the cycle. I think the stuff is a little sharper. It's a wider pitch mix. I believe he's a draft eligible sophomore as well. Yeah, a draft eligible sophomore. And Redmond also has an injury that has sidelined him for about a month. So I just feel like Townsend's probably the safer bet right now. So it's not going to be much further down the board before we get to him. The Rockies, I have going Cam Flukie. I had them taking Sawyer Stroh-Snyder with their first two mock drafts. Stroh-Snyder's another college bat that just kind of has slid a little bit just because of the performance in conference play. The hit tool's backed up a little bit. And with this pick, it was kind of tough for me to forecast this one just because there's not a clear strategy for the Rockies. They do lean college in the first round. They did go Ethan Holiday last year, but that was kind of another matter, kind of like with the A's with Jamie Arnold. It was kind of just a matter of Holiday falling to them at 4th overall. If he wasn't going 1st overall, it was probably going to be 4th overall. But I did use the Overslot Draft Simulator, which I plugged it in the article a few times. I encourage you to go check that out. It's a fun tool. But I used it for a couple picks with these teams that I just have a hard time forecasting. The Rockies was one of them. I ran it about 10 times, and about half the times it was a pitcher, and Flukie did pop up a few times. So, and I think this is the right range for Flukie. He definitely had top 5 steam earlier in the cycle with E.J. Booth and Jacob Lombard, and then Von Lackey, the three of them, climbing boards, and then Flukie dealing with that injury. It's like, okay, I think he's closer to probably a fringe top 10 now. I'd have to check on the performance since he's come back from injury. I think Coastal is still kind of ramping him up at this point. And there was definitely a couple of college bats in consideration here. Like I said, a couple of picks prior, this is where the board really starts to open up. So some college bats like AJ Gracia I considered here, Tyler Bell, even like a Ryder Helfrich, catcher out of Arkansas, who's another one just climbing up boards. Still considered Sawyer Stroh-Snyder here, Justin LeBron considered, but kind of just another one where I felt safer with Flukie just because the talent alone, it's a potential top 5 talent. Leading to the Nationals pick at 11th, I do have Carson Bowman here. I had him at 9th to the Braves. For me, I think Bowman he's still a fringe top 10 guy for me. I have said this with both of my mock drafts up to this point, is the fact that I do like the fact that the Nationals have kind of overhauled their pitching department, and I think this draft is as good as any to take a pitcher here with the 11th overall pick. I had him going Flukie in my first mock draft, then I had him going Gio Rojas in the second mock draft because Bowman was off the board at this point. And they've gotten some early returns on some high school arms from last year. Landon Harmon, Miguel Cime Jr. So I like for them to, kind of take a shot on a high school pitcher here. Bowman, I think this is the right range for him, probably anywhere between 8 to 15 is probably a sweet spot for him. I did mention the fact that there's certainly a reality in which he falls out of the top 20 into the supplemental round maybe. But I like Bowman here at the Nationals, 11th overall. 12th overall to the Angels, I have AJ Gracia falling here to them. I had him here in my previous mock draft. and then I had Chris Akopian in my first. Chris Akopian, I think, has just, for me, he has climbed boards a little bit just because his performance has held up in conference play, while these other college bats have slipped, like I said prior. And then with the Angels, I mean, it's still, like, I have no reason to believe that it's not just, who do we believe is going to be the fastest mover available. Last year, they did kind of shock some people with going Tyler Bremner second overall, but probably a fast mover. I think he's up to AA now. Gracia, I think is going to be a fast mover. It's a very polished bat. It's plenty of power. It's plenty of hit tool to, keep the profile afloat. And he's probably going to stick in a corner. So it's not a matter of him. It's not a matter of waiting for him to figure out his defensive positioning. It's just, as long as you can hit, we're going to move you up. And that's why I think Gracia is probably the right choice here. And then the Cardinals, I have going Ryder Helfrich. Helfrich's another guy that has climbed up boards just because he has performed deep into the season. I had them going Tyler Bell with my first mock draft, and then Drew Burress in my last one. Drew Burress obviously not here in this scenario. Cardinals, they like their college guys. I do think that Helfrich is probably the top college guy, regardless of pitcher or hitter available in this scenario. He's definitely flown under the radar just because of how good Von Lackey is, but Helfrich is just he's just another super athletic catcher that's going to stick at the position, super strong arm behind the plate. And then there is some concerns about the hit tool, which is really what separates him and Lackey, but it's a lot of power upside. So I don't see Helfrich at this point. I don't see Helfrich falling outside of the top 20, and I think the Cardinals end up being kind of the right range for him and the right spot, just considering the Cardinals like their college bats. The Marlins at 14th overall. This is where I have Sawyer Strohsnyder falling to, draft eligible sophomore, another guy that has just not really hit enough this year, but since Peter Bendix has taken over GM in Miami, they definitely also have a lean towards college bats. They did take P.J. Morlando in 2024, which was Bendix's first draft with the Marlins. But then last year was Ava Arquette, who is another guy that at the time was the best college bat. But I think there was probably some hit tool concerns just because of the longer levers, the longer swing. And the Marlins weren't afraid to take on that risk at 7th overall. They also just like these athletes and power upside as well. They love the power upside. And that's kind of what Strohsnyder is at this point. A ton of power upside, secondary tools. I don't think he gets past the Marlins pick at this point. And for me, Strohsnyder was a potential top 5 guy earlier in the cycle. So I think the fact that he's a draft eligible sophomore, the power upside, the athleticism, I don't see him falling much further. I think this is the right spot for him with the Marlins. Diamondbacks, Trevor Condon. This feels like a lazy pick just because it's kind of been okay, the Diamondbacks are going to select the toolsy, undersized outfielder, which they have the past couple years. I mean, 2024, it was Slade Caldwell. Last year, Casey Cunningham, who, not an outfielder. Actually, I'd have to check on where he's playing right now because I think the consensus was that he wasn't going to stick at shortstop. He was probably going to move to outfield. But he was the undersized bat. It was Tommy Troy a couple years ago, Jordan Lawler. So it's okay, who's the undersized guy that's probably not getting enough recognition just because he is undersized? So, I mean, if Drew Burress is available here, this is probably where Drew Burress probably doesn't get past this pick. Condon, I don't know his exact stats, but I think he's probably 5'10", 180. I mean, off the top of my head. Correct me if I'm wrong, but super toolsy, super wiry, strong lower half, really good hit tool. The power's coming along. He's going to stick in center field. In the article, I said it's kind of like a Corbin Carroll in a sense. I'm always careful giving comps because if someone says I say Trevor Condon is Corbin Carroll, then I'm immediately saying that he's going to become a Corbin Carroll. But it's kind of the same type of profile coming out of high school. It's a little less power upside than Corbin Carroll had, but a little bit better of a hit tool. And then also plus runner, just like Corbin Carroll is. And then Condon's just another guy that had, like, for me, he was out. I would say he was outside the first round, but he was probably a fringe first rounder for me earlier in the cycle. And then industry consensus just has him climbing up boards. I'm finally going to watch him play this Tuesday. His high school is playing in the Georgia State Championships. Etowah High School versus North Paulding High School. I've been meaning to go, because he's probably 30 minutes up the road from me. So I've been meaning to go watch him play. So this is about as good a time as any to get that chance. So I have him at 15th overall to the Diamondbacks. And then Gio Rojas to the Rangers at 16th overall. I had him going Vaughn Lackey in my first mock draft because that was kind of right before Lackey really took off. And then I had him going Cam Flukie in my previous mock draft. And the Rangers, this was kind of a tough one. I had a tough time forecasting this pick, so this was another overslot draft simulator one. And this was kind of like the Rockies. This was another pick that this was like a lot of pitchers popped up with this pick. And the reason I end up going with Rojas is, honestly, I think he's the best pitcher on the board in this scenario. There's definitely a case for Logan Redeman. There's a case for Liam Peterson, who I'm a bit lower on at this point. Obviously got a case for Brody Bamilla, case for Logan Schmidt. But for me, I think Rojas is the safest bet if you're also trying to tap into the upside. So I like for Rojas here at the Rangers. 17th overall to the Astros. This is where I have Justin LeBron's fall ending. So my first two mock drafts, I had him going Caden Sorrell. Sorrell has slipped a little bit for me as well. The reason I have LeBron's fall stopping at the Astros is because the Astros are not afraid of fringy hit tools. They're not. If you look at last year, it was Xavier Neans, high school hitter with hit tool concerns. He's got some good early returns so far. A year prior, it was Walker Yannick. Hit tool concerns there as a college catcher. Bryce Matthews a year prior, hit tool concerns. So they're not afraid of fringy hit tools if there's upside there. And LeBron still has some of the best upside in the class. It's some of the best power potential at shortstop where he's going to stick, regardless of how many errors he's made. I'm not concerned about the errors. He's too good of a defender, too good of a runner, too much power upside for him to fall out of the first round. And I think if the Astros don't take him, I think the Guardians take him at 19th overall. And actually, I'll get to the Guardians here in a second. The upside is just too good for LeBron to fall much further, and this is a profile that the Astros are not scared of taking. So that's why I think this is kind of the range that LeBron ends up at. The Reds at 18th overall, I have going Logan Redeman. I did have him go pitcher in my first mock draft. I had him taking Liam Peterson. Liam Peterson has slid just a little bit more for me. And then I had him going Ace Reese in my previous mock draft. Another guy that's just not quite hitting enough at this stage. Redeman I have going here just for the fact that at this point, I don't know if I see him going outside the top 20. I did mention him at 9th overall as a guy I was considering a lot with that pick to the Braves. And Redeman's kind of in that same range on my draft board alongside Townsend. I think I only have him separated by 2 spots on my draft board. Townsend just a little bit ahead of Redeman. So I don't think Redeman's going to fall much further than Townsend. And the Reds, college arms. Chase Burns, 2024. It was Rhett Lauder in 2023. They feel good about developing college arms. If Redeman's here in this scenario, I like for the Reds to go with Logan Redeman. And then the Guardians. I just kind of mentioned them with the Justin LeBron pick. I have them going Caden Sorrell, outfielder, Texas A&M. That would make the second year in a row that they take a Texas A&M outfielder. So Caden Sorrell and Jace Laviolette, potential to reunite there in the Guardians system on the same field. So the Guardians, the reason I said that I don't see LeBron getting past the Guardians pick is because the Guardians kind of in the same way that they're not afraid of the risk, and they're not afraid of scooping up these players that are slipping. So last year, I think they were selecting 27th overall. They end up with Jace Laviolette, who coming into last year's cycle there was a case for him to be the number 1 overall pick. And I think there was I don't know. I can't remember if it was MLB Pipeline or Baseball America, but one of those two had Laviolette as the number one player in the class coming into the cycle, and then he just couldn't hit. I think he was striking out over 25% of the time in his platform year there, and then he slides, and it's like then the profile became like really polarizing. It's like, is this even still a first rounder? And then he's available at 27th overall to the Guardians, and the Guardians scoop him up. They're like, okay, there's this outfielder, 6'5", 230-pound outfielder with elite athleticism for his size, elite power potential. Yeah, we'll take him at 27th overall. And so I think this kind of ends up being the same thing with Kane Sorrell. I don't think he slides as far as Laviolette did, just because I don't think the hit tool is as fringy as Laviolette's was at the same stage. There's not as much power upside, but kind of the same athletic upside. So I think if Caden Sorrell is slipping and he's available here, I definitely see him landing with the Guardians. And Dean Curley was their second pick last year, 64th overall. And Curley was a guy that was potential top 10 pick, and then just for whatever reason forgot how to play defense last year. Also another fringy hit tool, and he becomes available, and the Guardians are like, yeah, we'll take him at 64th overall because we like the athleticism, we like the power upside. So I think one of these college bats that are slipping, maybe an Ace Reese, one of these college bats that are slipping are going to end up with the Guardians. 20th overall, the Red Sox, I have going Hunter Dietz, left-hander out of Arkansas. They did go pitcher heavy early on last year. I think it was I can't remember if it was Breslow's first or second year as not GM, but chief, or what is his title? Chief of Baseball Operations or something like that. But last year he definitely kind of showed like his type in a sense. It's the big physical college pitcher. They went, Kyson Witherspoon, their first pick, and then then it was Marcus Phillips with their second pick, and then Anthony Ianson was their fourth pick. So they definitely like their big physical college pitchers with stuff, and there's going to be a few of them available in this range. That's why I had them going Liam Peterson in my last mock draft. I have Hunter Dietz here. There's more guys like Cole Carlone here. Even Brody Bumilla, a high school guy. I think there's probably some steam here as well. But I think for me, for Dietz has kind of, I think he's separated himself a little bit from kind of this range of college pitchers that are probably fringe first rounders, supplemental first round guys. And I think he's definitely has more steam as a potential top 20 guy than like a Liam Peterson, than maybe a Cole Carlone, maybe a Tegan Coons you can put into that range as well. Dietz has just performed really well down the stretch at Arkansas. I think he was the first pitcher with 100 strikeouts this year. I could be wrong. But it's, top tier stuff. It's starter's frame. It's command that has come along. And you also have to account for the fact that he was injured for the better part of his first, I think he only threw like 2 innings in his first 2 seasons at Arkansas. So, I mean, there is the injury risk there, but then you also look at the fact that, okay, this is technically his first year of college baseball, and he's kind of lit the world on fire in the SEC. And so I think there's a lot more upside tap into there, on top of the fact that it's already a pretty high floor when you're considering, the durability he's showing this year, the strike throwing, the stuff. I definitely think that there's probably a lot of consideration at this pick with Dietz. And then Padres, 21st overall, I have Jared Grinlinger here. With some of these picks, you might hear me say, okay, this is kind of a lazy prediction. And with the Padres, it's kind of like, it becomes a little bit easier because you can just kind of disregard all of the college guys in the class. So you're essentially disregarding 60% of the class, because the Padres are pretty much always going to pick a high schooler. I think it's been since, I want to say it's since 2015 that they last picked a high schooler. And they all, like, the last couple of years, they've been drafting in this range as well. So there's no reason for me to believe that they're going to pivot to a college guy, especially considering the upside of some of these preps in this range. I mean, Brody Bumilla is kind of like a slam dunk pick here. In my last mock draft, I had him going James Clark. In my first, I had him going Blake Bowen. So they're definitely not scared of the risky preps. because they really believe in their ability to tap into the upside. With Grinlinger, I prefer Grinlinger over some of those preps from kind of the same archetype in a sense in this range. I like him better than Bumilla. I like him better than Blake Bowen. I think I believe he is the youngest player in the class. I think he's younger than Rocco Maniscalco by just like a couple weeks. And I think I said in my draft board video that like we shouldn't be counting on the fact that Grinlinger is going to do both pitching and hitting at the next level. I have grown more confident that I think he actually is going to be given the runway to do both at the next level. I don't believe that he's going to like do both in the big leagues, but I think that he's going to have the chance to continue to do both until him and the Padres kind of figure out, or whichever team takes him, he's going to be given the runway to do both until they figure out which direction he wants to go. I personally like him as a pitcher more, but I do understand that the bat like really has the chance at being something special. He's already showing like he could tap into above average power, and he's still very freshly 17 years old. And so I do think it's a matter of the fact that it's a matter of like he gets the pro ball and he's pitching. I do think the bat's going to be good enough where he could DH when he's not pitching. And so I think that there's just a ton of upside there considering how young he is and the fact that he's going to eventually stick to either pitching or playing position and hitting. And that's the other thing too, is if he does go the hitting route, I think he probably has the athletic upside to be an above average defender in the outfield. So I think there's just too much upside here for the Padres to pass on in this scenario. Obviously, I would not be surprised if Brody Bumilla is the pick here, another guy with a ton of upside. But I personally like Grinlinger at this stage more than Bumilla. Tigers at 22nd overall. I have him going Cole Prosek. Catcher, shortstop, I have him listed as. He's kind of bounced around the diamond. There's always kind of a guy or a few of them that kind of pop up late into the cycle as first rounders. Prosek is one of them. And the Tigers, I mean, they showed last year with their selection of Jordan Yost. I think it was also 22nd overall that they picked last year. But they showed last year that they will kind of go with these guys that, and also their second pick, it was I can't remember his last name off the top of my head. That's right, Michael Oliveto. They took in their second or not in the second round, first round supplemental round, 34th overall, and that was a guy that was ranked outside the top like 200 on some boards. So the Tigers will definitely take a shot on a guy that might not be consensus regarded as a first rounder. But Prosek recently, late into the cycle, has kind of climbed boards into this range potentially. A lot of defensive upside just because I think it was just this year he started catching and he's showing some like really good defensive ability behind the plate as a catcher. Can also slide over to shortstop where he's shown some above average tools at the position. And then it's like a really good hit tool. Tigers love their hit tools. Jordan Leos last year, Bryce Rayner a year prior. Jury's still out on him after he went through the injury and now the revamped swing, whatnot. That's a topic for another day. And then Max Clark a year prior, Kevin McGonigal. The Tigers definitely like their left-handed prep bats that have good hit tools. So I like for one of them to end up here with the Tigers. My first two mock drafts, I had Tyler Spangler here. But I think at this point in the draft, I think Spangler would probably be an overslot. And the last couple of drafts, I think that the Tigers have gone underslot with their first pick. And Prosek would be I think he would be a better candidate for an underslot here. 23rd overall, the Cubs, I have Tyler Bell. Shortstop out of Kentucky. Bell's definitely still a first rounder for me. The offensive profile is a little more polarizing than I thought it was. It's like, it's an elite approach, and I think the approach kind of like masks the bat-to-ball skills a little bit. The bat-to-ball skills, I think, are not as good as they're made out to be just because of the fact that he doesn't strike out a lot. I think there's more whiff in there than the strikeout rate would suggest because the approach is really good. And then obviously there's power upside and the fact that he's probably going to stick at shortstop. And the Cubs, they like their college bats. It was Ethan Conrad a year ago. They were willing to take on the injury risk of an Ethan Conrad last year. I think it was 15th overall that they selected him, maybe 15th, 17th over, somewhere in the middle of the first round. They went Ethan Conrad because they like their college bats. A year prior, it was Cam Smith, Matt Shaw the previous year. So I like for them to go with a college bat in this range. Mock draft 1.0, I had Chris Rembert going here. Second mock draft, it was Aiden Robbins. I think Bell is definitely the safer bat here. And obviously there's a lot available in this range as well. And then Tyler Spangler, just mentioned with Tigers pick, I have him slipping over down to 24th overall to the Mariners here. I had him go in high school arms with their first two picks. It was Caden Wechter in 1.0 and then Cooper Sides in the last one. I ended up going with Spangler here. Spangler for me, I think I mentioned this in my mock draft article. He's kind of like a Colt Emerson in a sense. Both of them have excellent hit tools at the same range, power upside. Spangler might end up being a third baseman just because he's bigger. Cole Emerson's kind of the same thing. And I don't know if I see Spangler falling too much further. So this kind of seems like a pick where there's probably a lot of consideration at the Mariners here. And the Mariners, they develop preps well. So I definitely think there's plenty of preps on the table here for the Mariners with this pick. 25th overall, the Brewers, I have going Derek Curiel. This is one of only 3 picks. Yeah, because I have Chalowski and Emerson. This is one of 3 picks where I've had the same player in all 3 mock drafts. I had Derek Curiel going to the Brewers here in 1.0 and 2.0. I think the fact that for one, I think it's going to be hard to see Curiel falling into the supplemental round just because the hit tool is so good. And there is still some power upside here. I'd probably call it above average defense in center field. And then obviously there's the Sal Frelick comp there that people love to make. But I think it's just it just screams Brewers profile here. And so I think if Curiel is sliding this far, I think the Brewers are definitely the team to bite on him. And it's just a safe bat in general. That's the first round. Then we get to the supplemental rounds here. And like I said at the beginning of the video, this is my first time doing all 40 picks. So these supplemental picks that I didn't cover in my first 2 mock drafts, this is my first time projecting these picks, so these were a little tougher to do. 26 overall is the Braves, their second pick. I mentioned with the 9th overall pick the fact that I think I like them going with a college arm because the gap between the top of the prep class and then let's say your top 10 prep arms in this class, there is not much separation between them. So I think the Braves would be happy with whichever prep is available here. Which in this scenario, I have Logan Schmidt going to the Braves here, which I think in a lot of drafts, Schmidt is maybe a top 15 guy. So I kind of just like for the Braves to end up with the top available prep arm here. Obviously, Brody Bamilla is still available here. I think the Braves like a little more polish. You look at them taking Cam Caminiti 2 years ago, take Salthacine last year, not a pitcher, but obviously a polished prep. And so Schmidt, just a lot more polished than Bumilla for me. The stuff isn't quite as good, but it's a deeper arsenal than Bumilla has at this point. So I like for the Braves to go overslot Logan Schmidt here. 27th overall, the Mets have the PPI pick. I have them going Tegan Coons out of Tennessee here. I had them going 2 college bats in my first 2 mock drafts. It was Lucas Moore in mock draft 1.0 and then Chris Rembert in 2.0. Lucas Moore has just kind of slid out of the first round conversation for me. I just don't think there's enough power in the bat there. Then Rembert, I think he's probably closer to a front of the second round guy. So he's not featured in this mock draft. But with the Mets, this is another one I had a hard time forecasting. I kind of look at their recent draft history and there's not really a clear strategy, which is not a bad thing. It could just be that they want the best overall or the best player available that they feel that they can sign, which is obviously not a bad strategy. But you look at a lot of teams, if you look at their recent draft strategy or their recent draft history, you can kind of pick out a strategy there, which helps to forecast picks. This one I had a hard time forecasting. I went to the draft simulator for it, and I simulated it 5 times, and all 5 times it had them going with an arm. So I don't know if I see the Mets going with a prep arm here. I think they definitely lean college, especially when they're drafting this late in the first round. And so there's definitely a wide range of college arms available with this pick. Liam Peterson, Cole Carlone, Mason Edwards is available here. A few more guys. Tegan Kuhns, I think at this stage, is the guy I would prefer. Draft eligible sophomore, a lot of projection, good stuff. The strike throwing has gotten really good this year. So Kuhns I like here at 27 to the Mets. Astros at 28th overall, I have him going Blake Bowen. Blake Bowen, one of the most tooled up players in this class. He was playing, I believe he was playing football as well up until this year. He's just now focusing on baseball full time, so there's a lot of potential to tap into. But at the same time, these right-handed hitting prep outfielders have been pretty risky. If you look, I mean, you don't have to go back too far to find some guys that at this point look like busts. I mean, you had Drew Jones, I think it was second overall 2022. Elijah Green was in there. Was he 2021? But, I mean, there's some of these big physical prep outfielders, right-handed hitting prep outfielders that are tooled up that just end up not being able to figure it out at the next level. And so Bowen, for sure, kind of fits into that archetype. So I'm not as bullish on him as a top 15 guy that he was earlier in the cycle. But like I said with the Justin LeBron pick at 17th overall, the Astros they're not scared of the hit tool risk. And I think that's probably the biggest risk with Bowen. I don't think it's a huge risk. I think he's hitting enough. But there is still some risk there. And the Astros are not afraid of taking on that risk. So if he's available in this scenario, I don't see him getting past this Astros pick. I think the upside is just too good. The physicality, the speed for his size. He's showing some good defensive ability in center field. And so I like for him to fall here to the Astros at 28th overall. 29th overall, this is the first competitive balance pick. The first three here were prospect promotion incentive picks. I have the Giants going with Will Brick. Depending on how you view Cole Prosek, if you view him as a full-time catcher or not. If you don't view him as a full-time catcher, this is your top prep catcher on the board. I would say Will Brick, I would say he's the best prep catcher since Blake Mitchell in 2023, who is one of only, I don't know off the top of my head, I want to say it's only 3 or 4 guys like since 2020 that were prep catchers that went in the first round. So I think this is maybe closer to the ceiling than the floor for Will Brick, just because it's a demographic that teams just don't really like in the first round. But like I said, I think he's the best prep catcher since Blake Mitchell. And I've also said with previous pick, like I said last year, I think I mocked Luke Stevenson to the Giants with every mock draft I did last year, just because I was like, Buster Posey taking over GM of the Giants, he's got to pick a catcher in his first year, right? He obviously didn't do that last year. He went Gavin Keelan last year. But this is more so me just being like, I want Buster Posey to take catcher. He's the best catcher in Giants history. I think it would just be a fun pick. And I think Will Brick would be the best catcher available here. As far as college catchers go, Daniel Jackson, obviously, I think would get some consideration here. This is all speculation if the Giants were wanting to go with the catcher. Carson Tenney as well. I don't know if either of those two guys push into the first round. Daniel Jackson definitely has a better chance, but that's why I have Will Brick going here. The Royals at 30th overall, this is where I have Coleman Borthwick going. Another prep pitcher that's kind of in that range with Brody Bumilla, maybe a Sean Duncan here, a Caden Wechter, Joseph Contreras. This is where the board really opens up for these prep arms. I think there's definitely a scenario in which, this is the scenario. Like, Carson, this is a deep prep pitching class, but I think there's a scenario in which Carson Bolliman and Gio Rojas are the only prep pitchers to go in that first round before the supplemental round. But then you see 10 guys go between the supplemental round and the second round. So Borthwick is definitely in that range. He has a case as the top prep right-hander in this class. I still prefer Cooper Sides as a top prep right-hander, but Borthwick certainly has a case. And then the Royals, like I said with their first pick of E.J. Booth, they like high schoolers with loud tools. Borthwick is one of those guys who's been up to 100 with the fastball. There's feel for spin in there. The command is coming along. In this scenario, I really love the Royals pick because they essentially have arguably the best athlete in the class in EJ Booth, and then are arguably the top prep right-hander. So within the first 30 picks, they get those two profiles into their system. I would feel good about the Royals. I would feel good if I was the Royals in this situation, regardless of the fact that it was two high school guys and not a college guy. Diamondbacks at 31st overall, I have them going Logan Hughes, outfielder at Texas Tech. Logan Hughes has quietly been like one of the best bats in this class. There's little to none secondary tools here, but it's like it's a super polished bat from the left side. It's above average to plus power. It's above average to plus hit tool. So I could see him going higher than this pick, but I think the fact that there just isn't a lot of athleticism and defensive upside to lean on, teams are definitely shifting more towards the pure athlete over. Well, it is an interesting subject because teams are definitely shifting more towards the college guy just because they are the safer bet, but they also are leaning more towards the pure athlete, which you do find more of those at the high school level. But with that being said, I think you do have a lean more towards the athlete from the college ranks. And that's why I don't have Logan Hughes pushing up too far. I think he can push up to within the top 20 just because the bat is so good. But I do think the fact that the secondary tools kind of limit him a little bit. I mean, you look at Devin Taylor last year. I mentioned him with the Athletics. Devin Taylor and Logan Hughes are pretty comparable. Both of them lack secondary tools but have really good bats. And Devin Taylor's, he slipped into, I think it was the second round for the A's. I literally just talked about him. I forgot what it was. Or 48th overall, I have it written down here. 48th overall. And that was a weaker class. So, I mean, I think there's a scenario in which Logan Hughes falls that far too. But if I was the team selecting him that deep into the class or that deep into the draft, I would feel really good about that pick just because the bat on Logan Hughes is just really, really good. 32nd overall, I had the Cardinals going with Liam Peterson. I had him going Tyler Bell with their first pick. The thing with Peterson is this was more of a matter of I don't see Liam Peterson falling much further. It is some of the best stuff in the class. The command has improved this year. It has still been kind of a roller coaster in terms of performance, but he has definitely flashed like some really good performances where he's showing that ace upside and showing why he was a top 10 guy coming into the cycle. 2 days ago, I think he threw five scoreless innings against Alabama in the SEC tournament. So, yeah, he's definitely flashed it for sure. And the Cardinals are a team that feel pretty confident about their college arms. So, if he's developed properly, you're talking about potentially the best college pitcher to come from this class. I also did think about some prep arms here just because the Cardinals do have a very high bonus pool relative to their draft positioning. I think it's the 6th highest bonus pool, but they're drafting 13th overall, I think it is. So it kind of makes sense that they would be in on a prep here, maybe a prep arm, just because this, like I said, this is the range where the board really opens up for the prep arms. But I did look back while putting this together. They haven't selected and signed a prep arm since 2021. They have selected a few since, but haven't signed them. And then they haven't taken one in the first round since 2015. So I have a hard time seeing them going with a prep arm here. And the fact that they took a bat first, and also the fact that they do take college pitchers pretty high up in their drafts, I like for it to be a college arm here. And Liam Peterson, in my opinion, is the best college arm available in this scenario. The Rays at 33rd overall, I have them taking Aiden Ruiz, shortstop, high schooler from New York. With the Rays, it's like it feels kind of lazy to say that they're just going to take a high school shortstop. That's always the reasoning I see on a lot of mock drafts. It's like, okay, they're going to take the best high school shortstop. I think it's a little more nuanced for the Rays when it comes to that. I think they more so like high floor bats, last year, last year it was Daniel Pierce, obviously high school shortstop. So everyone was saying, oh, obviously the Rays are just going to take a high school shortstop. Then they went Brendan Summerhill with their second pick, who super high floor bat, not a shortstop, not a high schooler either, college outfielder. But I think they kind of just fall into this bucket where they're taking high school shortstops because they like the high floor profile, and a lot of high school shortstops fit into that group. You also look at the fact that they took, 4 of their first 5 picks last year were high school bats. It was Daniel Pierce, then they went Summerhill with their second pick. Then it was Cooper Fleming, Dean Moss, and Tatum Gray with their next picks. And all of those bats have been performing early on in their pro careers. So I don't think there's any reason for the Rays to shy away from their strategy with these, high floor high school bats. Aiden Ruiz, there's the added floor on top of the bat just because in my opinion, he's the best defensive shortstop in this class. He's hitting from both sides of the plate, and it's an above average to a plus hit tool. The power's coming along. And he's also older for the class. I think he's 19.4 on draft day, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe 19.2 on draft day. And if you kind of look at the recent draft history, the high schoolers they are taking are on the older side of the class, just because the older guys in the class are typically more polished, and that's what the Rays like in their high school bats. So, and Aiden Ruiz as well, I think there's a wider range of outcomes on a lot of different mock drafts for Aiden Ruiz. I don't really understand why, just because he is such a good player. I don't think he's getting out of the first round. I just don't see it. If I was a team drafting, towards the end of this supplemental round, he wouldn't be getting out of the first round. I like the profile way too much. I like the projection. I like the defense. I think I said in my mock draft, I think it said in my first draft board video that I would consider him with the top 10 pick. Like if I was drafting him in that 8 to 10 range, I would be considering him in the top 10 with a top 10 pick. Because I mean, if you compare him to let's say Billy Carlson last year was arguably the best shortstop defender in last year's class. He went 10th overall to the White Sox. His hit tool was a little more fringy than Ruiz, maybe more power upside. Add on the fact that and they were also the same age. Billy Carlson was older for the class as well. I think he was over 19 on draft day. Add on the fact that the Ruiz is switch hitting. I just don't know why he's not getting more consideration higher up. 34th overall, this is where Brody Bumilla is going to land. Bumilla, definitely the most polarizing profile in the class. I've seen him as high as 6th overall to the Royals on mock drafts. I've seen him outside the first round. Honestly, he almost didn't make it into the first round for me. I'm a bit lower on him just because I want to see more from the secondaries. And it's also just a profile that's tougher to develop. The unicorn lefties. If you look last year, and this is also why I didn't have Bumilla to the Padres. Last year, the Padres took the unicorn lefty, Cruz Schoolcraft. I think he's 6'8", and he's kind of had a rough go at it in pro ball thus far. But the Pirates, like I mentioned with the Jacob Lombard pick, they're willing to take these risky high schoolers to cash in on the upside. So if Bumilla is available here, I think there's definitely some consideration here with the Pirates. And the Pirates do have the highest bonus pool. That's another thing to consider. Bumilla is going to be a tough sign, especially if he's falling this far because of his commitment to Texas. The Pirates have the highest bonus pool, so they'll be in position to offer him a nice overslot deal. So Bumilla, 34th overall to the Pirates. I do definitely think that there's teams above this pick that will be in on him. But for me personally, I think this is kind of the right range for him just because I think there's just still too much question marks. 35th overall, the Yankees' first pick. So this is one I did get to forecast with my last 2 mock drafts. I had him going Joey Volchko both times. This time I have him going Cole Carlone, left-handed out of Arizona State. The Yankees, there's really nobody better than the Yankees at developing college pitchers. Last year they did go Dax Kilby with their first pick, which was kind of surprising. Dax Kilby for me last year was like a 3rd rounder, and they also overslotted him. So they really liked Dax Kilby last year. But I do think the safer option here, or the The safer prediction here is that they end up going with a college arm. It's it's definitely risky to overslot a prep as with your first pick and a smaller bonus pool at this range of the draft. I think that's why they do end up with so many college arms. But Volchko he hasn't really done enough for me to feel confident about keeping him in the first round. Cole Carlone on the other hand, is a guy that has climbed boards just because the stuff has ticked up so much this year. He's been up to 101 with the fastball. The sliders wipe out. It's one of the best sliders in the class. And kind of like the Red Sox, ironically enough, the Red Sox, two biggest rivals in baseball right there. But they like the physical starters frame college arms. So I like for Carlone with the Yankees pick here. The Phillies' first pick at 36th overall, I had him going James Clark in Mock Draft 1.0, and then Aiden Ruiz in my last mock draft. I still have him going high school shortstop here. I'm going Taj Marchand, shortstop out of James Island High School in South Carolina. Another guy that has climbed boards. For me, I'm a little lower on Marchand just because of the swing. It's a swing that's going to need some work at the next level. But the Phillies, they definitely like these tooled up high school up the middle guys. It was Dante Nori in 2024. Last year they did go college pitcher with Gage Wood last year, but I think that was more so a matter of kind of like how do you not take him in this scenario. I think the safe bet, kind of like what I said with the Yankees going with the college arms, that they're going to kind of take one of these athletic, tooled up high school shortstops. Marchand, a lot of projection in there. He's going to be 17-9 on draft day. And a similar profile to Aiden Miller, 2023, who's now their top prospect and one of the top shortstop prospects in baseball. Potential hit risk, but power upside and defensive upside. A bunch of athletic upside. I think in this scenario, he's probably the best high school shortstop available on the board. There's definitely a case to be made for a guy like an Archer Horn, Bo Lawrence maybe, Connor Komu could be in that range. I'm going to stick with my gut here and say Phillies go with a high school shortstop. Something that they developed well. They developed prep bats well. Rockies at 37th overall. I have them going Mason Edwards, another left-handed college arm, USC. Another guy that's kind of climbed boards this year. He was more like, I want to say he came in the cycle more of like a 4th or 5th round guy, but the performance has just been too hard to deny. The strike throwing, the feel for the spin, the fastball. I wouldn't say he's a slam dunk first rounder, but I would feel pretty good about betting on him landing in the first round. And then something I kind of found when I was researching for this pick is that the Rockies they've selected a college arm with their second pick in each of the last 3 drafts. And their second pick has also come in this range, like in the 35 to like 45 range. It could just be coincidence, but it could be a strategy that they've deployed as well. And I do think that he's the best college arm available on the board in this scenario. That's how I landed on Mason Edwards with this pick. And then they do have they have back-to-back picks here, 37th and 38th overall. And actually, this 38th overall pick, this is actually the first pick of the second round. I did say 40 picks total in the first round. There is it's really 37 picks in the first round. The reason I extended it to 40 picks was because the Dodgers are picking at 40. That's their first pick. I wanted to include the Dodgers in here. So I do have the Rockies' second round pick here. Then the Blue Jays are selecting 39th overall. Second pick of the second round, and then you have the Dodgers at 40th overall. So after Mason Edwards at 37th overall, I have them taking Aiden Robbins at 38th overall, outfielder out of Texas. I had him going higher up in the first round in my previous draft. I had him going to the Cubs, which I think is the 30th or the 23rd overall pick at this point. For Robbins, for me, he's kind of slid a bit just because there's more hit risk in there than I thought there was. It's a pretty aggressive approach, and it's not good enough bat-to-ball skills to really warrant the aggressive approach. It's going to need some refinement at the next level. But at the same time, it's his first year in the SEC after playing at Seton Hall mid-major, and the performance has been just fine. He's showing above average to potentially plus power. He's going to probably stick in center field. If not, he's going to probably be a plus right fielder. So I don't see a lot of scenarios in which he falls out of the first round. And, well, in this scenario, he is out of the first round, but it's the first pick of the second round. So I have him at 38th overall to the Rockies. 39th overall, the Blue Jays. This has kind of been an interesting pick because there's been a lot of steam with some prep pitchers here. And I think the reason being is a lot of the prep pitchers that the Blue Jays have taken in recent drafts have been performing well. You look at Johnny King, Gage Stanifer. And I think the prep arms available here are probably a lot better than the actual range. So I have him going Cooper Sides here at 39th overall. Cooper Sides is for me, is like a potential top 20 guy. So, and I believe I had him going Joseph Contreras the first two mock drafts because there was an actual link there. And there's been a lot of rumors that the Blue Jays are looking to get one of these prep arms. For me, Cooper Sides is the best available prep arm in this scenario. Coleman Borthwick obviously off the board here, but you still got guys like Jensen Hirschkorn, Caden Wechter, Blake Bryant available here. And those are all guys that, for me, I would feel all right picking in the first round. I mean, you could see more prep arms than that kind of fall in this range just because of what I just explained, is that they're probably better than the range says. They're going to be more expensive, obviously, but I would like to see some of these teams cash in on some of these prep arms in this range. And then the final pick, the Dodgers, another team that's just tough to forecast just because they always pick very low. And when you're drafting this low, it's almost like, okay, let's take the best player available that we think that we can sign. I have him going Bo Lawrence here, third baseman, Christ Church Episcopal High School in South Carolina. I had him going college arms. In my first two mock drafts, I had him going Mason Edwards and Logan Redeman. Bo Lawrence, I kind of just wanted to get in here somewhere just because he's been a guy that's been really climbing boards. I saw him as high as 8th overall to the A's. It's just has a real chance of being a special bat. It's bat to ball. It's already above average power with plenty more to come. He's 6'5" and only 205 pounds. So, and there's also I don't think he's going to play shortstop, but there is belief that he could play shortstop in a pinch. So I don't know, maybe the Dodgers try to play him there in pro ball if they were to take him here. And the Dodgers are another team they like polished high school bats. There was last year they went with a couple college arms? I know they went Zach Root with their first pick last year. Yeah, last year was Zach Root, college pitcher, and then Charles Davalon, college hitter. But the year prior it was Kellen Lindsey and then Kendall George year prior. So if the Dodgers are going to prep, they like the preps. Preps with the loud tools. Bo Lawrence, loud tools and polish, plenty of projection as well. I think at this point, I don't know if I'd call him a slam dunk first rounder, but I think he's definitely getting into the first round. I wouldn't call him a slam dunk yet, but he just kind of ends up with the Dodgers in this scenario. So that's your first 40 picks of the first round. I know I probably ended up talking way longer than I wanted to, but a lot of fun nonetheless. So, like I said, check out the piece below. I'll have it linked. The Overslot Draft Simulator, which I referenced in this. The draft board, go check that out. It's up to 85 players now. I know in my previous draft board video I said I would have it up to 100 players by now. It's at 85, still working on it. Go check that out. A lot of fun baseball ahead. I plan on having this out Sunday morning, so right before conference championships. And then we got Selection Monday. I'll be on here covering that. Regional tournaments. It's going to be a lot of fun. Within 2 months of the draft, but still a lot that can happen between now and then. So thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you think about your team's pick. Remember what I said, no complaining about shortstops. I'll be very upset if you complain about shortstops in my comments. So, be nice. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I shall see you on the next one.